I have a question. Is the imaginary left-leaning, woke, DEI, EGS, word mumbo-jumbo agenda in the room with us right now?
The awards have turned into one big far-left protest where self-obsessed celebrities berate the American people and tell them how to think.
By the way, diversity just means less straight white men.
Assassin's Creed fans slam decision to include black samurai in feudal Japan story. Well, they should.
There's also a playable female protagonist who thankfully is Japanese, but unfortunately has a wide face and a man jaw. Of course, we couldn't have a woman with feminine features because that would be transphobic.
We want games for men, we want sexiness, we want big titties.
No one speaks out because they're afraid of what's going to happen because, you know, they have their cards, their victimhood.
These no-name studios are behind the single most coordinated effort to indoctrinate millions of children through entertainment that's ever occurred in this country. This effort is maybe more powerful than the teachers' unions, if only because these propagandists mostly work in secret. Even if you homeschool your children, they're not immune to it.
Now, I will be addressing the Assassin's Creed situation. However, I do think that this topic goes beyond Assassin's Creed. This whole DEI, EGS score, everything to do with that has been dominating the gaming discourse for, honestly, a majority of the year so far. All these different outrage channels who sensationalize and overblow what's actually happening, making problems out of nothing, who are really only doing it to rally up an audience, full of losers, by the way, who are in an echo chamber and spin cycle, who just want to hear the same talking points regurgitated. Yes, actually, you know what? I am a victim. They are targeting my kids. They do have an agenda against me. And that agenda is obviously not true, and it's made up and fabricated. And in this video, I will actually show you how foolish this whole agenda thing is and how it really doesn't exist. People have been saying media is going woke for years now. You can go back to Wall-E being accused of being liberal alarmist propaganda, the original avatar for its environmental message, or this article about Pocahontas from 1995, by the way, and how this movie gave a new meaning to the term politically correct because they hired a Native American to voice act the Native American character. So what does the term woke mean? It used to be a term used to describe a black person who was aware and alert of anti-blackness, and so they weren't on the lookout for it, and, you know, they were woke. All the way back from the early 1900s. Now, in 2024, it kind of just means anytime there's some form of diversity people disagree with. After decades of white-facing roles, now when another race is the lead, it's controversial. And they say, well, make your own characters. Stop stealing ours, you know, with situations like The Little Mermaid. And say how, you know, if a white person played the Black Panther, it'd be an issue, even though it's obviously a stupid argument. And the Black Panther being black is part of the character, but, you know. Okay, let's go with that then, you know. But when black fictional characters are made up, like in Lord of the Rings, which, may I remind you, is a fictional universe, people still complained. They were calling it Lord of the Rings. And now I know this channel mostly focuses on games, but let's take a look at TV shows. The main leads in 2021 were 72%, almost 73% white. Is the forced diversity being shoved down our throats in the room with us right now? Because basically, only 25% of the leads were non-white. That's every other race, Asian, black, you know, Latino, all of them. That seems actually quite underrepresented, no? Not to mention these numbers don't take into account the roles themselves. Black actors are disproportionately casted for more gang members and thugs and those sorts of roles. So just because you may see an uptick of diverse roles in entertainment doesn't necessarily mean those roles are progressive. Latinos make up for 90% of the US population and account for nearly 29% of total movie tickets sold. Yet, only 4.5% of lead characters in movies are Latino. You'd think that if there was, you know, an agenda and a group to pander to increase sales, it would be the group that already accounts for 30% of your sales. Again, let's continue with some stats. Only 1 in 5 films contained an LGBTQ character. So that's not just gay, it's the whole group. And you know, gay people do exist. And what people seem to ignore in this conversation is that it's actually all very surface level, because the stories themselves are actually kind of the same. The only thing is there are more diverse casts now, which is something you'd only be mad about if you were, if you didn't like other races. Ellie is gay, sure, but you didn't find that out until the DLC. The second game isn't about her coming to terms with her sexuality, or it's what's the story about? Let me check my notes. It's a story about revenge and forgiveness. And when it comes to The Last of Us 2, I think one big thing that people always forget, and I don't know how they forget, but they always forget to mention this. People always bring up it's pushing this agenda and it's so woke and Neil Cuckman and this and that, but they seem to forget that on PlayStation 5, The Last of Us Part 2 is the most violent game that exists. This game is more violent than any GTA game, than anything that exists. That's in the gameplay, that's in the story. Both. And Spider-Man 2, which was heavy-handed, I'll admit, they were a bit heavy-handed with everything, right? It did seem like there was maybe an agenda there. But that was about, I don't remember what that's about, because the game just wasn't that good. It wasn't a very good game to me. And I think it was just poorly written in general, if you take everything else out. I think people ignore the fact that some things can just be bad. God of War Ragnarok, that was woke too, don't forget, because they were blackwashing fictional characters. But yes, the characters were fictional, but they were written by white people, and those white people didn't even know black people existed. So there's no way in 2024, when white people do know black people exist, that you can do that. Okay. Go woke, go broke. High selling game, by the way. Also, all three games I just mentioned were made by white males. So yeah, DEI. Also, these are the developers for The Last of Us 2. These are the developers for God of War, and these are the developers at Insomniac. Again, as you can see, DEI taking over. If gaming is so woke, right, can you name me 5 gay characters? Ellie's girlfriend who's bisexual, Bill. 3 characters from the same game, okay? And then who else? There's that gay kid from Spider-Man, the Homecoming guy, that was in the game for like 2 minutes. Terrible side mission, by the way, don't get me wrong. Could you name me 5 black characters with a lead role? You're gonna tell me who? Lincoln Clay? Yeah, there was a controversy about that. Black guy in the Mafia? No way, impossible. You're ruining the franchise. Then what other games? You gonna list some GTA games? Where you play as, the gang members. Because a black samurai, that's too far, that's unrealistic. But gang members? That's historically accurate. That's proper representation right there. The only black character that comes to mind that isn't a gang member, that isn't a stereotype, is Lee from The Walking Dead.
Hey, Lee, you know how to pick a lock, right?
No. Why would you say that?
Well, you're, urban?
Released in, 2012? And I mean, yeah, you do start the game in the back of a cop car, but it's whatever. He was a good character. And whilst editing this video, I decided to come back to this section and just add 2 more characters that came to mind who weren't stereotypes or gang members, and they are Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Saga Anderson from Alan Wake 2. And now, as I'm sure everyone remembers, these were both controversial games as well because of that. Spider-Man 2, Not My Spider-Man. You're blackwashing Spider-Man, make your own characters. I'm sure everyone remembers. Then there's Saga Anderson from Alan Wake 2. We waited 10 years to play a sequel to this game, and now you're forcing in diversity with a woman and a black character. We don't want this. So again, I'm sure people would name those characters when talking about how many black people there are, but again, you were just complaining about them. So again, is this super woke, left-leaning haven you guys talk about in gaming, is it in the room with us right now? Because like I said, the messaging and themes of these games has not changed. It's just surface level changes. You're only focused on who is cast in the games and not what the game's actually about or representing. These games aren't addressing systematical injustices and trying to shift the political attitude in either direction. They're very safe in the middle games. There's no dialogue about police brutality or economical inequality or gun control, nothing that would actually be some kind of left-leaning politics being shoved into game. There's no There's no story like that. There's no games like that they're releasing. I never see these messages renounced in this woke DEI, EGS video game climate we're in. Never see it. No. So there's none of that. There's just what? A black samurai, a gay pride flag, and an ugly character. This is what you guys are actually complaining about all day, every day, creating outrage over. So this is my entertainment, this is where I want to go to relax, I don't want it being shoved down my throat thing, doesn't really make sense when the politics are, let me check my notes again. Black people and gay flags. And not to mention, games have historically been political, and there's been no complaints. Politics wasn't being shoved down your throat when you played Bioshock Infinite. It wasn't being shoved down your throat when you played Spec Ops The Line. But why would you? It was a main white character. What politics? Everyone loves Infinity War. Everyone says Disney's so woke and it's so this now. But everyone loves Infinity War and thinks it's one of the only good movies to come out from Disney recently, and agrees with Thanos and his political message about overcrowding and resource management. Genocide, by the way. But if you don't want a political message, depth, political doesn't need to be bad necessarily, right? Either way, it can be, it's just a theme of a story. But if you don't want any political message, any depth in your story, right? What do you want? Do you want Mario to just save the princess 1,000 times over and over and over again? But wait, actually, no. Because, I forgot. Yeah, Mario is actually kind of political too. Yeah, Mario is kind of a simp, I forgot. Yeah, my bad. You want your media to stand for nothing. You want it to just be a white guy saving the world, maybe a female character, but she's gotta have a nice rack. Gotta appeal to your male-centered audience. And let me say this is media. I do prefer when it's attractive characters and that kind of thing that we're dealing with, right? But again, just like gay people and black people exist, right? Ugly people also exist. So just because someone's ugly or doesn't have a huge ass and, those kind of things doesn't mean the game is woke either. So yes, I won't deny that media is maybe including more walks of life generally speaking, but I'd argue that doesn't necessarily make them woke. And if you struggle to name 5 gay characters or 5 black characters or 5, I'd argue that is it really being shoved down your throat? But I think it's time to address the Assassin's Creed situation.
Nobunaga's admiration of this strange foreigner had become undeniable, and thus he formally requested that Yasuke enter his service. It was official now. The man of humble Bantu origins was a samurai. Yasuke was afforded all the privileges any other samurai would receive. He was granted a piece of land and a household upon it, Japanese garments, and a ceremonial short katana. It can be assumed that he was taught the Bushido code and how to fight as a samurai. Yasuke became one of Nobunaga's favorite servants, and was one of the few people afforded the privilege of dining with the great daimyo. Yasuke soon joined his new lord in his mission to conquer all Japan. He likely saw combat at the Battle of Tenmokuzan, fighting fiercely alongside Nobunaga's forces to destroy the Takeda clan. It was the first time any Japanese warrior had encountered an African in combat.
The Assassin's Creed situation is stupid. The Assassin's Creed games have mystical creatures, time travel, and they also start with this message. These are not historically accurate games, and they never have been. They've never pretended to be. People are acting as if there is no Japanese character in this game, and all of a sudden they know what cultural appropriation is. But there is a Japanese character in this game, and she's actually in front of Yosuke on the cover. And the people that do acknowledge that she's real, exists, and is in the game say that she looks like a man, and she's not attractive, she's ugly, which isn't true. I don't know if you've seen what Asian women look like. She looks like an Asian woman. Wow, we finally get an Assassin's Creed game in Japan, and it's a black guy. That's crazy. But there was no complaints for Neo having a white guy. No complaints for a white guy from Wales being in Black Flag, which takes place in the Caribbean. Those were fine. No, back in that time, there were white people in the Caribbean, and the guy in Neo exists. Yeah, same with Yosuke. I actually haven't seen Japanese people complain about this either. Just white guys and very few black people who we don't claim for obvious reasons. You can just tell by the haircuts and just not get into it, but it's obvious. I saw someone say, hey, look how many dislikes the Japanese trailer for Assassin's Creed got. They obviously aren't happy with it, implying that it was Japanese people disliking the trailer, even though in the screenshot himself, he disliked it. I saw a thread of Japanese people responding to it, saying, oh, this looks like a cool character. In Japanese, you had to click translate to read the tweets. And it was a thread of people saying, yeah, seems cool, seems I'm interested, I'm gonna pick this up. And you know what you had in the thread? You had people responding in English saying, well, you know he wasn't actually a samurai, right? He was a retainer. Regurgitating the same talking points that they stole from other people and did no research on themselves, because if they did, they would find out a retainer is a samurai. Then you have the other racists who were like, he was real, but he was a novelty. He was a pet. And it's like, it's not what is said, you know, throughout history. Also, I feel like people are missing out on a huge factor here. Assassin's Creed is going to be compared to Ghost of Tsushima, another game with a similar realistic looking art style, similar settings, similar gameplay loop. And how can they make the game stand out and be different? Let's make one of our characters be the first black samurai ever and the other one a woman. Now there's no confusion. Easy to tell the difference between the two games. If you're taking a screenshot from behind, you're like, is this Ghost of Tsushima or is this Assassin's Creed? You'll be like, no, look, I can see that's a black and I can see that's a woman, so there's no confusion here. There were so many games like Assassin's Creed that have taken place in Japan since people wanted the game to go to Japan. They've said this themselves, that we don't want to go to Japan because it's kind of already been done so many times, so if we did go there, we'd need a fresh take on it. This is the fresh take. There aren't a lack of games that take place in Japan that feature Japanese character. There's not. And I see people say they put these forced diversity roles to help with reviews and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna boost the scores up.
All the developers have to do is beat their audience over the head with rote left-wing propaganda, and their game will be well-reviewed and well-received.
If all you needed to do was add diversity to a game, then tell me why Forspoken has a 6 out of 10. It's literally just white people wanting to be victims for some reason.
But they shoehorn that into their game anyway, because at every possible opportunity they need to minimize and demonize white men. White men cannot be the hero of anything, even historical events where they were the heroes, like World War I. And many other historical events, by the way. White men have been the heroes of many historical events. But, you know, that can't be allowed to happen in games because they have to attack white men whenever possible. We're seeing this at all levels in the gaming industry.
Do I need to list all the games where white men are the heroes? I don't think I need to. I think you know there were hundreds of games like that. I think you know that's a majority of games. I think people just want an excuse for them being failures, which is ironic, considering this same group of people say that's where white privilege stems from, people being failures and wanting to blame it on someone else. And which, by the way, if you couldn't tell from this video, I absolutely do think white privilege exists. Doesn't mean white people can't suffer or have problems or anything like that, or like we don't share the same problems. It's just that we don't share some other problems. It means instead of complaining about actual systemic issues, you complain about the Little Mermaid being black. These channels create fear, so you rally behind them and send donations and give them your views and donate to the Patreon and all these other things. It's fear mongering. These issues aren't actually existing. Hey, look, there's a gay character here, there's a black character here. They're trying to replace you. You can't get that job because of DEI. They're hiring someone that doesn't know what they're doing and they're designing planes and now the planes are gonna crash. And no, they aren't. I honestly had no intention on buying this Assassin's Creed game, but you know what? Now I think I will. And if it's go woke, go broke, then why are you so broke?